Hey Ketan, what's up, man? Welcome to the Mike and Shots podcast.
Hey, thank you, Divyansh. It's been quite a while that I've been trying. I remember you approached me some time back, and it's been quite a hustle, but then I'm glad that I'm here finally.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, Ketan, majorly because you are my batchmate from MBA and we've been in touch like for so long, like 2017, 2015. And finally, we are, doing a podcast together. And you've grown a company called Plush and you are the co-founder over there. And it's exciting to see like batchmates grow companies and, get into the game and really excites me. And that's why we are having this conversation, man. And so you are the co-founder of Plush, which is essentially dealing in women hygiene products and wellness products, right? And
Yeah.
in this podcast, we'll talk about your journey, right? How do you grew the company and why did you choose this market, right? And what's happening in that space? And right? So on that note, Ketan, I think I'll hand it over to you to take this introduction forward and talk a little bit more about you and about Plush as well, man.
Yeah. Hey, hi everyone. This is Ketan here, and I'm one of the founders at Plush, co-founders at Plush. So Prince and I started this close to about Jan of 2018 is when we quit our respective jobs as we did our MBA together, Divyansh and me, 2015, 17, and then I went into Hindustan Times, and then it was a short stint, and Prince and I decided that we will plunge into entrepreneurship. We had a venture back, during our undergrad days also, Prince and I. So it was quite, I would say, sort of like we clicked on the go even with this feminine hygiene. And Plush, we started Plush. And Plush eventually started as a period care brand or a feminine hygiene first brand with sanitary napkins, panty liners, wipes. And eventually, as the market evolved, as the brand evolved, we progressed into a self care brand for women or an intimate self care brand for women where we are into period care, we are into hair removal, we are into sexual wellness, and a little bit of personal care as well.
Hmm.
So that's how the brand has evolved, and we are present across about 400, 500 offline stores, modern trade, and
Wow.
online. So we present everywhere,
Yeah.
like with the likes of Amazon, Flipkart, or your quick commerce, Zepto, Blinkit, and Instamart. So it's been a crazy ride, and lot more exciting things to come from Plush as well.
So, man, I have seen you like during in college that you were
Hmm.
interested in brands and right, you did a lot of case studies as well. And what interests me is why did you choose this sector, right? Why women hygiene? Like I definitely read your story on Plush that you went through a lot of different ideas and you
Uh,
finally went with this one. Why did you choose this space?
it's like a lot of founders, have a personal story. Here, something happened to me or my wife or my girlfriend, and there was nothing like this with me or Prince. It was like both of us are really passionate about building something consumer first or building something for the consumers.
Hmm.
And it was like one sort of, visit to a supermarket in Chennai where, we just catched upon like this self. Usually, we used to come across all these new age food and beverage brands. So that was the time when, paper boat, raw pressery, sab naya naya hua tha. And,
Right.
it was like very interesting and, the space was buzzing. And so we were like, there are so many brands in F&B space and all of that space. And we just caught this ale where Whispers, say Stay Free and Sophie hai. And then we were like, this particular ale in the supermarket has not been, looked at upon a fresh lens from a D2C perspective, right? This was about say 5 years back or 5.5 years back when we were looking into this.
Okay.
And that was like a starting point for us to, go deeper into this industry, read more. Iske pehle to, for example, Prince and I hadn't even looked at a sanitary napkin and, in like hand, or we were not even aware ki where is it stored in our, in our homes.
Yeah.
It used to be somewhere secretive in our homes, right? So
Yeah.
मेरे
Right.
product भी नहीं देखा था.
Yeah.
But this caught our attention. This now the space could be revolutionized. And thereafter, we started our journey to speaking to a lot of women around us, knowing more about the product, what their pain points were. And
Hmm.
that's when, slowly we figured out that there was enough for us to do, both with respect to the product and the brand. And
Right.
that's where, we decided to, we started working on the product first, stored our confidence in our product, and then we quit our jobs to, build the
Hmm.
journey further.
So what did you find out, like when you went to women and talked about these things? Like what was the thing that kind of struck with you and your co-founder, that okay, this is something which is kind of lacking in terms of, say, the product, and the packaging I've seen is amazing. So what was that you really found out while talking to women over there?
When we're speaking to a lot of women, right? No, like whether it's friends or not. Like, first of all, biggest thing was to actually speak to so many people, because this wasn't or this isn't a very, you know, like it's not something that every random woman would be very comfortable speaking. But we still found those like hits and misses. And the biggest thing that came to us was about 70 odd percent women faced this unspoken problem of rashes or redness or irritation, right? So sab log ko, there were some of the other word that they used, whether it was rashes, itchiness, or the fact that they developed redness around the intimate areas. So that was like a point where we thought that why is it happening? So this was like the problem for us with respect to product, like with respect to functionality of the product, where we started working more on the product
Right.
as to how could we solve. The second thing that we found out was the fact that these sanitary napkins use a lot of plastic, whether it is the
Okay.
packaging, whether it is the layer of the when you open a sanitary napkin, एक sound आएगा. There's a
Hmm.
flimsy polyethylene plastic that is there used product के
Okay.
अंदर. So it's like a lot of plastic being used in the entire product journey. So we thought, these are two things which we could probably try and look in with this very
Hmm.
respect to product. And the third thing was the brand angle. So, like, look at the names, Divyansh. Matlab, Whisper, Stay Free. This was the time when probably these names are good when, but probably abhi ka jo audience hai, they're no more whispering, or they don't,
Correct.
they stay free. They have evolved as an
Yeah.
audience also. We thought that, this was the right time for us to also enter with
Hmm.
with an audience who is already aware of all of this, right? They know they're no longer whispering. So
Hmm.
that was like an important thing from a brand point of view, from a packaging. So you must have seen, right? So it's breaking that clutter from
Yeah.
what you would usually see.
Interesting, man. So, I also read about women's hygiene in India, specifically
Hmm.
about the fact that what is the adoption like? What are they? What
Correct.
products are they using? Right? Must have done your own research as well.
Yeah.
And I found that the southern states in India, like over
Hmm.
there, the education is more, definitely. That's why the adoption is more,
Correct.
right? And the northern states are they're still evolving in terms of education, so that's why
Yeah.
the adoption is less, right? So, was that a sort of a challenge for you as well to educate like the women in terms of adopting the product? And did you do something about it then, or are you trying to do something about it right now?
So Plush as a brand was catering to an audience who is probably were aware of the fact that sanitary napkins हमें use करना है.
Hmm.
So we were not going behind, say, a tier three or tier four cities where we had to educate. So our audience was to educate the existing users to use a better product.
Hmm.
So the biggest thing for us was that switch. For example,
Right.
a woman इस category में कैसा है कि if someone is used to a product, they find it very tough to switch to a new product. It's
Hmm.
like a trust efficiency बहुत है इसमें, because they have that whether it leak हो सकता है, there's a chance that it might leak, there's a chance that it might tear apart. There are so many things. So
Yeah.
to trust that a new product or a new brand was the most difficult thing that we found, especially educating that what it's going to be all right. But you need to choose better for you. You need to now choose better sanitary napkin. You need to choose a napkin which is not giving you rashes, which is environment friendly, which
Hmm.
is not having any chlorines, fragrances, or colors on the product. So that was the most important challenge, to educate that and convince them to try them for the first chance. So yeah, this is a challenge that we definitely found, and we still continuously have this challenge, right?
Hmm. Right.
But the
Okay.
biggest, like the good part about also is that once people use your product, then they stick to Plush, because
Hmm.
now it will be difficult for them to switch back to another product or switch back to try a new product. So that comes to our advantage, but it comes after a lot of struggle.
Interesting, man. And you also talked about the fact that you're going into sexual wellness, right? This is a term which
Yeah.
is not really discussed openly, or right, still evolving in terms of a conversation, right? I think people are doing that. But I want to know more about this space, the sexual wellness space, that, how is it evolving in a country like India, and what's there in that space?
If you look at the times today, right? I mean, at least what we hear around. So about say 10 years back or about even 7, 8 years back, people would go to a pharmacy. People would go to a nearest pharmacy, ask for. There were campaigns around ki khul ke bolo condom, right? So it was like an era where the sexual like the fact that only prevention or protection was the most important. It's still there, but
Yeah.
that was it. Now that protection is taken care of, now we are thinking of wellness. So
Hmm.
now around sexual wellness there are so many, I wouldn't say problems, but there are both sides. One is the fact that how can you be more like people have live-in relationships, people are open to all of open to living relationships,
Correct.
and now people are okay, they accept that this is now people are looking for pleasure. Now how can a particular condom, for example, enhance pleasure for both
Right.
you and your partner? How can there is a problem of say vaginal drying, so there is lubricants around it. So there are new products coming in this category which is helping wellness, and sexual wellness is very important, like how
Hmm.
emotional wellness is important, and all of these are interconnected in a way, right? So
Got
as
it.
a brand for Plush, we were looking after sexual wellness from a woman's angle. So you like all the brands like say Manforce, Score, Moods, all of these brands are talking to men, even
Yeah.
Durex to a lot
Yeah.
extent. They're talking to men because they are like at the end of the day, you were buying a condom before, right? But we wanted to offer choice to for women's safety and pleasure,
Yeah.
right? So like the more condom goes thinner, it's more advantageous for a man. But then a woman is not finding that extra pleasure, right? And there's this huge orgasm gap that's also there. So
Hmm.
we're trying to sort of address that from a woman's angle, and
Okay.
that's why there's a range of lubricants and condoms, which is aimed to enhance women's safety and pleasure.
Right. Got it.
So it's just started, I would say, the education around it, the awareness around it. People have started asking. There was only a push before. Now
Hmm.
people have started asking for a particular choice of product, especially in tier one cities.
Got it. Got it. From this perspective, I'll ask this question again to you that what made you realize that the problem in this space is big enough?
Hmm.
Because I think you again did it for a reason, both of these things, right? What made you
Yeah.
realize the problem is big enough again?
So this is an unspoken problem. So ये कैसा है कि for example we would have studied in MBA, right? Like this is a gray area where you still don't know how big it is because it is not like a Me Too product that you're doing.
Right.
This is an area where the adoption is only increasing more and more. So if you were
Hmm.
probably using, if an average man was using X number of condoms before, now it's probably using a more. They've started consuming condoms long before. Earlier it was only probably after your marriage. Now it
Right.
started probably say after the age of 18. So
Correct.
one, adoption is increased, education is increased because now people know that
Hmm.
you need to use condoms. In fact, people are still like for our in fact our objective is that you need to use specific condoms for women's pleasure. So it's going as deeper as it is.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
it's like a huge category because the only thing is it's dominated by one or two players that it
Hmm.
looks difficult to be broken about. So it's all shared by that one or two major player, right? Don't look like you can look even in feminine, I mean, or sexual wellness, right? So I feel
Right.
the category is quite huge, and these are unspoken needs that we are speaking of.
From what I see, even on the Plush website, I think the second generation or the disruption is now coming through
Yeah.
Plush and others. But yeah, that's a great sign of things are going to change for the good. And now from that perspective that you gave, I also want to understand like when you started Plush, right? When you started the company in 2019, if I'm correct, with your
Yeah.
co-founder. Um, Tell me what were the biggest challenges you faced when the initial stages of building Plush, and how did you overcome those challenges, right, while building the company?
So I'll tell you a very interesting thing, Divyansh. So December 2017 is when Prince and I decided to quit our respective jobs.
Okay.
Prince was working in investment banking, I was working in Hindustan Times, and we decided to quit our jobs and start working into this full time. At that point of time, we had a prototype version 2 or 3 of the product. Okay.
Okay.
And then we know this is the problem, and we started working on the problem, but we still did not have something because it was very difficult to manage the work and then get into this actively. So we decided to quit our jobs in December 2017, and हमने सोचा कि March 8th of 2018, which is Women's Day, we launched the brand. But little did we know that we launched the brand in August of 2019.
Hmm.
So this was the biggest, I would say, like the challenge, struggle, or solving for it was the patience. So it took us about 1.5 years to work on the product, speak to a ton of women, and this was a product where, for example, if I give you a chips or a drink or something, you would taste it and you would say whether it's good or bad, and you'll have
Hmm.
a feedback very quickly.
Yep.
But here we had to wait for women's menstrual cycles to come in. So if I
Right.
give a product to an ex person, I had to wait for about close to 30-45 days to them experiencing the menstrual cycle, and then after that getting the feedback. So and then we started used to work on that particular feedback through
Hmm.
again manufacturer say. So every version of that we developed on the product was minimum 3 month exercise.
Wow.
So that was the so and we had like 3 to 4 versions of it. So like it was the most like difficult thing that to do this product, what do you say, testing of the products, though there were laboratory testing वगैरह थे, but those would give you like basic results, right? The biggest feedback or the most important feedback would come from the users themselves, right? Like I will give you another like small insight or an example. There is an adhesive at the back sheet of the glue,
Okay.
right? They say the pad sticks to your innerwear. So if the amount of adhesive or the glue is if it's too much, there's a chance that when you're removing the pad might tear off.
Okay.
And if it is too low, then it will not stick to your innerwear. So these are
Oh.
insights that only when women start using the products they will give you.
Yep.
Then there are small insights like when you open the product like an existing brand, एक आवाज आएगा प्लास्टिक का.
Hmm.
इससे क्या होता है कि if woman is in a washroom, in a public washroom, people around would know that probably she is menstruating because of the noise of the pad itself. So we started small insights is what we worked about, and eventually thanks to so many women who we are touched upon during those initial days. So that was the like the biggest challenge that we faced, and the learning, the patience that we garner after that, right? That's the
Hmm.
biggest takeaway for us
Hmm.
especially.
And tell me, man, because you were starting from scratch, like in 2017,
Mm.
talk a little bit deeper. I want to get deeper about the fact that where do you get the money from to, create that product? It definitely is a challenge. And how did you build the team together to, go move forward and eventually launch Plush?
Yeah. So money-wise, both Prince and I pulled in our initial set of resources. Since both of us are working, we had savings, and if you remember, like from the case study that you mentioned, Marico, so I had got money from that. So ये सब पैसा उसी में गया मतलब
Okay.
that amount of like all of that, whether with savings from your work and because I didn't work for long, that and especially the competition, and parents also pulled in the same amount. So that went into the initial product sort of sampling, making the
Hmm.
product, and it is very difficult to convince a manufacturer to make a product for you, especially in small batch, because all of them would be यही मिलेगा आपको. If you want this, you take it. Otherwise, we are not entertaining any small request from you because they don't have. We were not enough. We were not so strong to convince them, right? That or we did not have the backing of a major conglomerate for them to sort of just make it in small batches. So
Hmm.
that's something like the initial amount of my funding was pulled by both Prince and I from our savings. And when you talk about the building the initial team, right, I think that's the most important thing that, or the most difficult thing, I would say, right, that we had to crack because the initial team, especially the first five or seven founding members, I would say, they really help stay us on path because the initial days, especially, will have a lot of ups and downs, like
Right.
especially downs because you've not cracked your product market fit, you've not probably cracked a lot of things.
Hmm.
So for them to understand that you've not cracked it and then to help you crack that, that's the most important thing, right? Because otherwise people, if there are very specific set of people that we get, for example एक performance marketing expert बुला दिया, एक marketing expert बुला दिया, so then if they don't find perfection or they don't find something good, they would just leave, right? But there were this initial team of generalists who would do, and especially a couple of specific people also who would do multiple roles. If an order is not getting processed, they would get into it. How do we make
Hmm.
sure that the packaging does not get damaged while reaching the customer, speaking to the customers? So that hunger in them really helped us improvising. Because
Right.
it was not that we were perfect from day one, right?
Hmm.
A product was 95% there, but so many things around it. We eventually, it took us about 6 months to get on track.
Hmm. Super, man. And because this space is dominated by giants, right? Stay
Hmm.
Free, Whisper are giants and very old brands. How did you get that foothold in the market? I know you did a lot of product market fit. You went to people and talked, right? But still,
Yeah,
getting a foothold needs lots of at least adoption from people for a
correct.
longer time, right? How did you do it? How did you get the foothold? And probably it's been like 4 years now since you've been 5 years now since you've
Yeah.
been in the space. Tell me more about that, man.
So it's been about 3.5 years that we are in the space right now after we commercially launched. And I would say we still, it's very like since the giant conglomerates or the legacy brands have the muscle power, it's still that we are still working in progress to, basically establish a foothold. But what we did or we've consistently did is we figured out the problem of rashes or
Hmm.
irritation and the sustainability. So we stuck to that, core with respect to our period care even today. It's like we offer 100% rash-free protection or your money back. So I would say we would be the only brand in India offering that. If you experience any rashes, you just ping us on Instagram, we would refund you the money back.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's how we would, first we would communicate about how we've eliminated rashes, which is by using cotton that we've eliminated rashes. To talk about sustainability on packaging and the product itself, but still people would find it little difficult or hesitant to try the product, right? तब हमारा final nail would be rash free or free. Try the product. If you don't like it, ping us on Instagram and get the money back, right? And Divyansh won't believe that hardly till date of the lakhs of users who have tried the product and continuously using that, there would hardly be 2 or 3 users who would have come back and told us that they experience
Wow.
rashes.
Yep.
So that's like because that's something that we build the product for, right? And
Hmm.
that's something that even occasionally, Abhi, if some people come and there are people who have commented us randomly on Instagram saying thank you for building this, and even on
Hmm.
Instagram. So that is something which is very fulfilling, yeah? And that's what is like the firepower in us to do this or challenge the legacy brands.
Right. And I've seen your website. I've seen the kind of marketing you're trying to do. Right. Tell me more about the marketing side of the world because it's a little different from what
Correct.
brands do. So what's with marketing?
So there was, I mean, the marketing is like the marketing or the brand was another thing that we were trying to solve by our brand, right? From the name Plush. The name Plush itself is soft, luxury, and sort of comforting, right? So comfort would be the most important narrative that we would drive in our communication. We wouldn't say, movement to be bold, aggressive every day. There are some brands who try and say that, but you can't be bold and aggressive 365 days of the year.
Yeah.
You'd want that comfort, you'd want that sukoon,
Yeah.
especially during your menstrual cycle, right? So our brand would try to be just that, right?
Hmm.
And this is and how we've tried, or at least tried doing it, is through the use of illustrations. So
Right. Yeah.
that's made our job. I mean, when you say communication wise easier, but creating wise very difficult to create illustrations. But it's like you can put on those finer nuances through an illustration without being insensitive or without being how do I tell you, without being more awkward to some of
Hmm.
the users, right? So through these illustrations we've tried to pick up these small narratives, small instances that you would go in a in your regular menstrual cycle or even during the month, and
Hmm.
we've tried to sort of challenge that. And of course the packaging is the biggest thing that we've tried to we look at very how do I say it, assertively in packagingly, whether
Yeah.
it is the use of fonts, use of colors, or the copywriting itself on the
Hmm.
box. So if you get the box out of a plush box, you would see that the box itself is trying to comfort you by whether there's a periodic cycle, pun
Yeah.
intended periodic cycle. There are a few stories about the brand or about the woman herself. So we've just tried to make it comforting, and there's a little bit of product story as well.
Super,
So
man. I think I've seen the box, comforting colors and, the way you write Plush is also very cursive and, a very,
uh,
yeah, not very strong in the way that, bold and all that
yeah.
aggressive you just talked about. And, since you've been in the space for a while, what do you think the impact Plush has had on the, the women or the society that probably? Is there something you want to talk about in terms of impact, probably, or possibly beyond in the hygiene sector or in the sexual wellness sector, if Plush has had any impact from your perspective?
Impact, I would say, at least what there are a lot of things that we can't measure per se because it's a qualitative aspects, right? For example, providing the rash-free protection to the users. So I know, for example, a common friend, Divyansh, our MBA friend itself, uh, she's taken her the plush pads to Europe, right? Because she
Okay.
feels that this is the comfort that the brand provides, so वहाँ पे भी नहीं मिल रहा है.
Oh,
So these are small stories that we come across, and you know that person. So these are small stories that makes it very fulfilling. So providing that extra protection, providing the even from the brand perspective and the product both come into the play, and there's a huge impact with respect to sustainability.
okay.
So
Yeah.
we have eliminated a lot of plastic,
Okay.
lot and tons of plastic, whether it is the packaging, whether it's the
Hmm.
product itself. So we use cotton instead of polyethylene on the top sheet. There's a paper instead of plastic in the packaging also. So a lot of plastic being eliminated, and it's not that we are 100% plastic free, but we've eliminated a lot of plastic. And I would say the third impact I would say is offering choice.
Hmm.
So, for example, there's menstrual cups, there is, say, pads, there's a variety of pads, then there's tampons. Uske baad, there is now sexual wellness may, there is the kind of range that we offer. So that choice itself and education about that choice itself is empowering because now women or menstruators get to choose what fits them, what serves them, what. So that itself is I think a huge. These are small things that
Hmm.
which matter to like each and every individual, right? So offering that choice itself is huge.
Yeah.
And what is also worked is that 15-minute delivery. So
Oh, okay.
that's it's like because now Zepto, Instamart, Blinkit, mein, especially in metros, mein Plush is available all across there.
That's Superman.
So that
Yeah.
15-minute delivery itself is like a catalyst to that choice.
Hmm.
So those things, and as I told you, any random person comes across and he's talking about Plush, right? So we participated in this exhibition last like this Jan, Little Flea in Bombay, and then I was just standing there outside our stall, and then people are just like, "जा रहे हैं यार ये Plush, ये सुना है इसका पैड बहुत अच्छा है." So they're just talking to themselves and ये लोग बात करते जा रहे हैं.
Yeah.
So as a founder or as a team member, when you overhear these conversations, बस यार अभी हमने मतलब
Satisfaction.
it's like what we are doing is in the right direction, right? Of course, there are so many aspects or so many people behind the scenes, so many things which have gone wrong, but just these
Yeah.
conversations that you hear, it's worth doing.
Because you've talked about direction, man, I want to know about the vision of Plush and what can people expect like from you in the future. Because I won't say you talk about everything that you're going to do,
Yeah.
but at least the vision of Plush, because that will be really interesting to know from a young entrepreneur. Yeah.
So, while we started from a fem care or a period care heavy brand, our objective or the vision is to be the self care brand for the modern Indian woman. Uh, so, whatever product that touches them, right? Especially on the intimate areas,
Hmm.
especially products which are not so spoken of, we would definitely venture into that, provide that offering from a convenient or a hassle free standpoint. So, Divyansh, whatever product that we try and touch, right? Product ho gaya. So we try to make it for the modern Indian woman.
Right.
So pregnancy test kit, probably both of us might not be the active users for it. So there will the pregnancy test kit in the market is like a dropper system. So there'll be a card and there'll be like a drop. You need to collect the urine and then there'll be a dropper. You need to place it on the card. So it's a hassle. It's a hassle to basically first collect the urine and it's unhygienic as well. So
Yeah.
what Plush offers is a midstream pregnancy test kit where you directly pee on the stick. So these are
Okay.
a few things, is we're trying to make for the modern Indian women of India, right? In fact, we wish to see take it global also, but especially from a very Indian diaspora, where it was branched out, especially in these categories, right? So we just trying to do that slowly, one product by another, one post by another. So even with respect to the brand communication, right?
Hmm.
For example, let me continue with the Pregokai example, pregnancy test kit.
Hmm.
The communication is that even the negative result is a positive result because
Hmm.
not everyone wants to be a mother, not everyone
Yeah,
wants to conceive. Especially during the time when there is a problem of PCOS, PCOD, where periods are delayed. So the fact that it's just, yeah, they continuously keep testing, और उनको negative result चाहिए, because
right.
they are not probably they're not emotionally, financially, mentally stable to conceive. So that negative result is important. So
Hmm.
these are few things that we also try and openly talk about it.
Interesting, man, because vision is pretty interesting, and hope you the plush gets bigger in the coming days, because now we're going to talk about your entrepreneurial side more on the
Uh,
episode, right? So there's in today's world there's a narrative that MBA is like it's not good and it's a waste of money and time and all that stuff, man.
uh,
But we've done an MBA, like it's been
correct.
it's been a while. We've done an MBA together,
Yeah.
and I want to know about the benefits you've derived from an MBA, right? And how it's benefiting you right now in your entrepreneurial journey.
So since I did the MBA, I got to meet Divyansh, who's the host of the show. So these things aside, I think at least the way I look at an MBA, it's very personal,
Yeah.
because there are few things that for me. So I had a very, I mean, with regards to whether it's a school or the college, my exposure was very limited. So MBA provided that exposure like in a
Hmm.
big way, whether it is meeting like-minded folks like you. मतलब पता चला कि दुनिया is like, or whatever, the world is so
Yeah.
much bigger
Yeah.
than what you think it is, right? The opportunities are quite many. Uh, there are so many windows out there,
Yeah.
and of course, Divyansh, like coming from NM, and like there's a competitive spirit. There was a competitive spirit between each one of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether it
Yeah.
could be case study हो गया, फिर या समर इंटर्नशिप के लिए दौड़ रहे हो या प्लेसमेंट के लिए दौड़ रहे हो,
Yeah.
बट एक कॉम्पिटिटिव स्पिरिट इम्बाइब हो गया
Right.
कि
Right.
मतलब you just need to keep hustling, right? So at least for me, these two were the biggest takeaways, and of course the network now is quite wide. There are friends and folk, there are friends now in Cred, Shopify, Amazon, Flipkart, हर जगह में मतलब है कोई ना कोई
Yeah.
है. So when there's a door that you cannot open it, you probably have some person help you open that door, right? So
Right.
that network is quite huge, यार मतलब.
And
So
because our college was in Mumbai, it was like at the most happening place, it's Juhu.
correct.
And
हाँ.
that was another plus point for us, because, we had the city with us also hustling together, and
Yeah,
amazing people together working. Yeah.
correct. The city was hustling, we were hustling. So I think it's like Bombay ka ek saying hai. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. So it's like to be at the same place, you need to keep running. So
Oh, okay.
it's like you just need to keep hustle just to stay at the same place, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
मतलब लोग आगे चले जाएंगे, right?
आगे चले
और
जाएंगे वहां पे. That's definitely true. And during MBA, like I had a different perception of entrepreneurship. It's amazing. It's have a crazy life and
hmm.
all that stuff, right? But after starting your company or after starting your own venture, how has your perspective on entrepreneurship changed? Like, must have been some drastic change in you as well as a person, or your thought process.
So definitely, yeah. So at least I'll tell you, even my exposure. So MBA में देख लो. So for example, I think both of us are part of ECEL, right? Or so there were some seminars over there. There are a few things that look very good from the outside, that it's a fancy thing to raise probably funding, or you would appreciate people who have raised funding rather than you would appreciate people who built solid businesses from an outside,
Yeah.
right? But once you've stepped into it, there are so many struggles, I would say, or both good and bad, right? Struggles with respect to, for example, building and managing a team. Now
Hmm.
you wouldn't probably know of that. We will probably
Yeah.
only think of the product that comes out, and probably what's the branding and feel. But there are so many people working behind the team. There are so many, like, building that team is so tough.
Hmm.
Or it's at the same time, when you build that team and when you have so many people running with you, or with you, it's like it's a culmination of effort that eventually falls into place. So neither, like, me alone can't solve for it. It needs so many people together.
Hmm.
And I feel it's entrepreneurship is something that definitely one should explore, especially during the early days, जहाँ
Yeah.
पे अपना risk appetite is lower or risk, sorry, say, the ability
Appetite
to
is higher. Yeah.
fail and it's
Yeah.
okay to even fail and then come back. Like once you, that was at least there in my mind कि अगर अभी कर दिया तो एक बार by chance if it doesn't work out also there is
Yeah.
something that you can do, मतलब फिर से चालू कर सकते हो. At least MBA has provided that cushion in our heads, right? It's like कुछ नहीं हो तो एक base package से हम चालू हो जाएगा, मतलब we've at least got that background sorted. So that cushion was definitely there after MBA, I would say, especially after MBA. And for like at least for me, it was like risk leke dekhte hain, how does it pan out? And it eventually, like there was a conversation between me and my dad, and I was also from like a family business. So, and when I told him I want to do this, he's like, you have either 1 year or 10 lakhs, whichever gets finished early, you come back. So at least that was
Wow.
something that he had told me. Either you have the time or the money. जो पैसे या तो पैसा उड़ा दिया या टाइम खत्म हो गया. उसके बाद this is the time that you have. उसमें whatever risk that you want to take, you can take, right? So at least for me it was that, but eventually it turned out. It turned out well.
And what happened? Like what the 1 year did, what worked out? 10 lakh, 1 year, what was the case?
Both didn't work out. So एक साल मतलब it actually went beyond 1 year also.
Okay.
And but the only thing was he could see that there is progress. And
Yeah.
like both Prince and I used to work out of my like father's office only, and he could see that progress. He could see that we are speaking to people whom he had thought I would never speak to, whether it is you know speaking to investors, whether it is speaking to big packaging vendors. So he definitely saw that the product is coming up. He could see that the day we started till the 1 year, he could definitely see कि कुछ काम कर रहा है. And that's why, and since we were sitting right in front of him, he had that these folks are working.
Yeah.
So he gave it extra, I would say, 2-3 महीने extra दिया, and eventually, exactly 1 year and 3 months is when we sort of we were like ready with everything,
Ready.
right,
Yeah.
including the funding.
Right.
Uh,
And you've had a journey of this kind of having stressful thoughts during the process, right? Uncertainties, right? How did you handle those stressful moments and anxieties during your entrepreneurial journey? Like early on, probably more, or probably still you feel that stress and anxiety. And how do you handle that?
it's a going concern है. The only thing, the degree would vary, the stress would vary, right? And the stress busters would also vary. Uh, in the initial days, at least, what I would say one thing which worked really good was me having another co-founder, right, Prince. So there were days when I used to feel very low when there
Yeah.
was like especially the waiting days where you were waiting. तब it feels like what are we doing? I'm wasting मैं इससे अच्छा था मेरे को मेरे salary जाता. So those days probably his morale would be high and he would basically like direct or guide to some other direction or distract probably,
Right.
right? And there would be days when probably he was feeling a little down, and then probably I would use to basically tied in that journey together, right? If it was just probably me that this is just my personal thing that you would, it's like there was this saying, right? If you have like-minded folks, you will go together probably a little slower, but then you will eventually travel. But if I was
Yeah.
just probably, I would probably travel faster, but then I would break down, right?
Hmm.
So that thing at least helped me. And nowadays, now the Abhika stress is a little different, right? It's about growth. It's about in some in a business way, it's about chasing those numbers. It's about acquiring X number of users, retaining those users. So now the challenges or the things that we discuss are completely different. But now there is no fear of, probably we were at a stage where there was nothing to lose. Now we are at a stage where there is something to lose if you don't do
Yeah.
things right. So
Right.
अभी वो वाला phase है. But the good thing is now that we have like a like a team who also takes care of so many things, right? So I would say the stress is divided by so many people. So that's something great.
Interesting.
If you have the like-minded folks like together partnering in your journey, तो stress divide हो जाएगा. नहीं तो उनका stress भी हमें मिलेगा.
Correct, man. And you're talking about your team. How big is your team right now? And how is your day-to-day as an entrepreneur right now?
Our team currently, including the ops team, right, would be about 50 to 60 people. Okay.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
and I would say there are few aspects that Prince handle, there are few aspects of business that I handle. Uh, so we do have individual, like there is a team that probably I have, there's a team that he has. So most of the time is in, there is a lot of execution related sort of duties are taken care by the team, but it is more with respect to, discussing things together, discussing the plan. If there is an idea probably that I might share, they have probably, we might, like, we might discuss. So there's a lot of collaborative effort probably goes on
Yeah.
these days. And since like one cannot execute everything, then it probably flows down to a few people here and there.
Hmm. And I want to know about the advice for aspiring entrepreneurs, especially say in your sector, which is more like
Hmm.
FMCG. What advice do you have for those entrepreneurs who are kind of starting out?
Uh, it's too early for me to give an advice, but if there was something that I have learned, is that you need to have patience, and because it takes time to build something that consumers love. It takes time, uh, whether it takes time to build a product, because your manufacturers have to support you, your packaging vendors have to support you, especially during the initial times where the quantities are very low, right? Starting की मैं बात करूँ,
Hmm.
so it takes time, it takes patience, it takes a lot of convincing from our end
Hmm.
to convince that particular person to help us out with that small quantity, help us out with that, take an exception with us. We will definitely, come back. We will give you that return in the later points of time. So I think that patience with respect to both time and resources is, वो होना चाहिए, because at least for us now we've come into that journey where there's a little bit of pull now coming from the consumers, right? Earlier we used to push, अभी वो pull आने लग रहा है, तो now it's a very interesting scenario where you can really see things from how that customers are enjoying it, or loving your brand. So that satisfaction will take time, but it is totally worth it, right?
Hmm. And I think one more thing I want to know, what about belief? Like, did you believe in the idea since the very beginning, and did it kind of evolve with time? Like, because belief is something which is a lot of people struggle with, like they give up in, like, as you said,
Yeah.
patience is 1 month or something. What about belief?
Belief, so both Prince and I definitely thought that we could probably crack this. So when the product started, we started getting good reviews about the product after the third version, fourth version. We felt that there was something that we were doing right. Since we were speaking to the users, they were trying the product. So we definitely felt that the product was doing right. Of course, we had our assumptions and we had our how do you say, question marks, whether this packaging is right, whether this version is right, whether going into offline is right, whether, so all of those things where part and parcel will continue to be part and parcel. But it's like you need to take that, what do you say, hunch. You need to go with that
Yeah,
hunch, especially during the initial days, because you
right.
never know what is right, what is wrong, unless and until you do it. Because there was
Yeah,
no like playbook, क्या ऐसे करने से ऐसा होगा,
correct.
ऐसे करने से ऐसा होगा. So we definitely had belief, but the belief was stronger in the product than
Hmm.
anything else, right? So
Yeah,
that belief in the product here, we, if the product say, to at least, like, it's like, even if I give it to my sister, or if I give it to my best friend, if she's not complaining, or if she's not going to slap me, "Ki, what product have you given
hmm.
me?"
Hmm.
As long as that was not there, we felt, yeah, dekh lenge, everything else can be managed.
And
But now our beliefs are stronger, because now there's a team who is also
yeah,
taking care of. They
right.
also believe in the vision, they are pushing also. So now that belief is stronger, with so many thoughts, so many brains, so many hands. So
The collective
that's
belief
it.
is, yeah, bigger than
Correct.
the belief of a single
In
person, right?
true.
And what about balance, man? I think there's a debate about balance in an entrepreneur's life. What about work-life balance? Is there some sort of balance, or you actually have to, like, tilt in one direction to actually make things happen? Like, what is your perspective on balance as an entrepreneur?
Definitely, at least for me, I would say it is manageable. It is not something that it will take away your entrepreneurship, or your startup, or your company would take away all the time in the world. It's like, if you find, for example, nowadays, if since the team is so strong, and they are so good at their work that it is, the work can be divided about so many people. But if
Hmm.
you probably if there was a hiring mistake or something, then that would add to my work or add to my stress, and that will eventually go down in my personal life as well. So I would say it is not something which is like it cannot be managed or balanced. It definitely requires burning additional hours. So there would be some ideas that you would come up in the night, and you would just like I would just call Prince in the night, or he would call me more often. Raat ko 10 baje, 11 baje, what would so those things would keep coming where those how do I tell you, those anxiety or that excitement would keep coming in here and there, but it is not something that cannot be managed.
Yeah.
Right? It is something that easily, or I would say, can definitely be managed. Even if for example, yaar, if you were like job, right? But if you're believing in that vision, if you're believing in the product and the company, you would have that extra energy, and you would probably take that to your bed also sometimes.
Superb, man. I think we've had this discussion in depth now, and I've got such an amazing perspective from you. And you've been hustling with Plush now, and I think we've had this wonderful conversation now. And probably this is the end of the conversation now. And I wish you all the best with Plush, man. Uh,
Thank you
you,
so much, Divyansh. Now that we have a product for you as well,
yeah, man. You're talking about something for men.
I was talking that since we've launched Love Glove, which is male condoms for women's pleasure, I now there's a product for you also to try out, right? So I think
Oh,
you need to try out and give us the feedback.
crazy. Definitely, and I'll have a look at it. Yeah, I think haven't heard of it in a while now. So I think this is going to be an interesting product for me as well to try out. Yeah. Thanks for
Yeah.
this.
Thank you so much, Divyansh.
So it was lovely having this conversation with you, Anketan. So you've shed some amazing light on the fact that how you build up a company from scratch, and also the fact that how you become an entrepreneur. You wade through the different tough decisions and the tough path you've taken. So all the best for Plush again, man. And we'll connect again soon and hope to have a good time again.
Thank you so much, Divyansh. I think it was great chatting with you after a long time, and wish you the very best in your sort of venture, in your content creation, and in the product as well. So
Thank you.
thanks so much, Divyansh, for having me here as well.
It was lovely, lovely, man. Great.